In the small village of Bethel, a simple farmer once stumbled upon a hidden manuscript buried beneath an ancient olive tree. The parchment was weathered and yellowed, its edges crumbling like the leaves of autumn. With trembling fingers, he unrolled the scroll, and there, in elegant yet faded script, he found a story that challenged everything he thought he knew about the world. It was a story not just of creation, but of the Creator, a God who, far from being the all-knowing, all-powerful being he had always imagined, was a figure of profound complexity and internal conflict. This discovery would change not only the farmer's life, but also the way he understood the very fabric of existence. The idea that the Bible was the popular encyclopedia of the Middle Ages is a well-trodden path in historical discourse. Yet, what is often overlooked is the profound impact that the character of the Lord God had on the medieval imagination. The Lord God, as depicted in the Bible, is not just a conceptual entity, but a deeply imaginative one. This God is the largest, most overwhelming, and least forgettable lesson in the medieval curriculum of faith. Unlike the gods of polytheistic cultures, who are often seen as part of the popular culture and intellectually dismissed by the elite, the Lord God of monotheism is an all-encompassing presence that permeates every aspect of life. When we discuss monotheism, it is often noted that polytheistic cultures sometimes harbor an intellectual elite that espouses monotheism or philosophical monism. These elites might enjoy the colorful and varied pantheon of gods, but they assign it little intellectual importance. The gods of polytheism are seen as complex beings, each embodying different aspects of human experience. For example, Vishnu in Hinduism is not a simple deity, but one who encompasses various facets of human life, including amatory experiences. However, for the devotee of the Lord God, there is no such escape. The Lord God is the sum total of all divine attributes, and there is no other deity to whom the incompatible aspects of divinity can be transferred. This monotheistic God, imagined as a composite being, fosters a way of thinking about the self as similarly composite and alone. The psychological impact of such a God is profound. In a polytheistic pantheon, the gods are complex, but not all-encompassing. A devotee can turn to different gods for different aspects of life, finding solace or guidance in the diversity of the divine. But in monotheism, everything redounds to the credit or blame of the one God. There is no cosmic opponent, no alternative deity to whom one can turn. This God is trapped within the contradictions of his own character, and so are his followers. The Lord God, as described in the Tanakh, is a tragic figure. He is both the omnipotent Lord of heaven and the solicitous friend of the poor. He is the tender, solicitous husband of 2nd Isaiah and the sword-in-hand butcher of Joshua. These contradictions create a conflict of identity that is both profound and unresolved. Theodicy, the problem of reconciling the existence of evil with an omnipotent, omniscient, and benevolent God, is not just a philosophical puzzle for the sufferer, but a personal dilemma for the God who must confront his own contradictions. This internal conflict is what makes the God of the Tanakh so compelling and so human. It is a tragedy of character, much like the tragedy of Hamlet. Hamlet is trapped by his own indecision and internal conflict, unable to act in a way that resolves his dilemma. Similarly, the Lord God is trapped by the contradictions within his own nature, unable to escape the moral and existential dilemmas he faces. The Tanakh, in this sense, can be seen as a tragedy of divine character, a narrative that explores the internal struggles of a God who is both all-powerful and deeply flawed. Western civilization is a product of both Athens and Jerusalem, and we are familiar with both Greek and Jewish tragedies. The Greek tragedy, like the mid-air incineration of the Space Shuttle Challenger, arises from external forces and is swept forward to an inevitable resolution. The Jewish tragedy, on the other hand, arises from within and is characterized by internal conflict. It is the torment of a man who wants to be both a tender father and a careerist athlete, a conflict that has no easy resolution. This internal struggle is more relatable to us, and it is the kind of tragedy that touches us more deeply. W.B. Yeats captures this internal conflict in his famous line, "The intellect of man is forced to choose perfection of the life or of the work." This line, which seems quintessentially modern, has its roots in the ancient memory of a God who needed to choose but could not. The Lord God is the divided original, and we are the divided image that remains. His restlessness, his internal contradictions, are the restless breathing we still hear in our sleep. We are his children, inheritors of his complexity and his struggles. The story of creation in the first chapter of Genesis is a testament to this complexity. When God begins to create, the earth is described as welter and waste and darkness over the deep. God's breath, or spirit, hovers over the waters, suggesting both parturition and nurture. The act of creation is not a simple one, but a gradual process of separation and differentiation. God separates light from darkness, water from land, and sky from sea. Each day, God creates something new, and each day, God sees that it is good. The creation of human beings is a crowning achievement, made in the image of God, both male and female. This image of God is not a simple one, but a composite, reflecting the complexity and duality of the divine. In the second chapter of Genesis, the narrative shifts to a more intimate and detailed account of the creation of human beings. Here, God is portrayed as a craftsman, fashioning the first human from the dust of the ground and breathing life into him. The creation of woman from the rib of man further emphasizes the duality and complexity of human nature. The Garden of Eden, with its trees of life and knowledge, is a symbolic representation of the human condition, where the potential for both good and evil is present. The story of creation, therefore, is not just a narrative of external events, but an exploration of the internal dynamics of the divine and the human. It is a story of a God who is both creator and created, who is both omnipotent and limited by his own nature. It is a story of human beings who are made in the image of this complex God, inheriting both his perfection and his flaws. In conclusion, the farmer in Bethel, upon unrolling the ancient scroll, discovered a God who was not just a concept, but a living, breathing, and deeply human figure. This God, with all his contradictions and struggles, is the one we continue to grapple with. And it is this God who, in his complexity, makes us who we are.